Please listen carefully.
Well, hello, universe. Welcome to the Optimist Daily Update. I'm Christy Jansen.
And I'm Ariel Tienko.
We are part of the team behind the Optimist Daily, making solutions the news. We bring you reader-funded solutions news every day in order to change the tenor of news media, social media, and the direction of your day to help us all get focused on solutions.
7 days a week, we publish positive news stories written by award-winning journalists and delivered online to your inbox and through our social channels. And also, we are sharing these solutions in a commute-worthy, walk-worthy, fold-your-laundry-worthy podcast. Today is Tuesday, March 15th, 2022.
And I think this was like the 2 years from when the state of California actually declared everything was shutting down.
Yeah.
Like 2 years ago today, the 15th is when everything closed in California. And you were in Costa Rica back then, right?
Yeah, I was living in Costa Rica at the time, and we were still unsure of what this whole thing was, you know?
Right. So much has changed. And we're still not through this pandemic period. We don't know how it'll really end. It's ending, but not ended.
Mm-hmm. It feels like instead of ending, maybe we're just learning how to deal with it in a way that doesn't prevent us from going on with regular life activities.
Having our life, yeah.
It was really fun this weekend, actually, because we had our friends from Prague visit and went out to dinner at a restaurant and heard the clinking of knives and forks of other people and just like other conversations happening around us. And I forgot how much I missed that kind of atmosphere.
It's interesting to see how we appreciate those kinds of just general social activities that we used to sort of take for granted and maybe even feel happy to let go of for a little while.
Definitely put everything into perspective, I think.
Anyway, it's still getting perspective. We still have lots of issues in the world. I read yesterday that I think Barack Obama tested positive and Sean Penn.
Oh, really?
Over the weekend. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But it's not a big deal because we have the tremendous advances in treatments and also in the vaccines, which is it's been a tremendous couple of years. All right, so let's get into the news, Ariel. What's the article you wanted to focus on today?
So my headline reads, UK cracks down on greenwashing.
What is greenwashing? I mean, everybody may understand what that is, but I think we should probably redefine it here.
Greenwashing is when companies label their products as eco-friendly or greener or sustainable to appeal to the environmentally conscious consumers, which is a group that is growing and growing, obviously, as everyone becomes more concerned about climate change and the climate crisis. But instead of actually practicing these greener or more sustainable ways of production, the companies are failing to follow through with their claims.
So it's kind of an advertising kind of bid as opposed to substantially changing their supply chains or manufacturing processes.
Exactly. It's just basically, it's a nicer way of saying lying to the consumers.
Okay. Virtue signaling around the environment.
Which is, obviously not ideal. This is a huge problem because the company's deception, once it's found out, or if consumers decide to look into it more, then it shakes the trust of the consumers, and then they might not believe the next green label they see, whether or not it is sustainable. But thankfully, the UK Competition and Markets Authority, or CMA for short, is acting to address this rash of greenwashing. The CMA has begun investigating claims of UK fashion firms who say that their practices are sustainable. And they're finding that many of the brands and labels that make sweeping boasts of quote-unquote eco-friendly products are actually
maybe not so not so eco-friendly.
Not as eco-friendly as they say they are. And this falsehood is swindling many consumers who pay premium prices for clothes, because a lot of consumers these days are saying that they are willing to pay more for things that are actually eco-friendly. Now, Cecilia Parker Aranja, the CMA's Director of Consumer Protection, says, for those very generic general claims, most businesses won't be in a position to prove that the product is good for the environment every step of the way. If you use the word sustainable, I think that really means that you have to be sustainable throughout the whole life cycle. And she also says that the other thing to watch out for is if they're saying that their products are made with recycled fibers, because often these products are only made with 16 to 20% of recycled fibers.
Right. So it's kind of like talking about the whole recycling industry and sort of the falsehoods that get labeled there, and how many of our plastic bottles really get recycled. I think plastic gets recycled maybe only like under 10%, 8% of
It's a
small
percentage for sure.
of anything plastic that's even recyclable, right? So now you're talking about fibers, fashion. There's so many different parts of that life cycle of that product, where the fibers come from, but also what kind of dyes are they using? How are they treating the people who are working in those factories? Where are they, getting all the waste that comes out of those factories? Is it going right into rivers, or is it getting cleaned up? Is there a closed loop kind of a situation? And then what do you do with those clothes at the end of their lifetime? Do they get into landfill, or do they get actually recycled? So this is a really important thing to think about. That's just in terms of fashion. And every single product that we are using you have to think about that. But it's a cultural shift.
It can be so overwhelming to have to think about all of that as a consumer. And you're just wanting to trust the companies that are saying that they are being eco-friendly. But the reality is that we can't.
Yeah.
But that's why the CMA is compiling a list of the worst offenders that they find, and they're going to make public requests for them to change their practices and their labeling. And if these companies continue to falsely represent their practices and their products, then they can be taken to court.
Are there any tips for how to figure out if what you're buying is actually more environmentally friendly? Or
it's recommended that people look out for words eco and sustainable within sweeping claims about a product's production. And you should also keep an eye out for the use of the word recycled, as well as was mentioned before. And then also comparative words like greener or more sustainable are often pretty vague, and they don't actually compare to anything. And the last tip that's given in the article is to give secondhand shopping a try, something I really like. But I mean, I use an app because it is too much for me to think about every single thing that I'm buying. So I have this app, I think it's called Good On You, and I just kind of look at brands that I'm interested in. I've seen brands that disappointed me on this app because I thought that I was buying something sustainable, and really they aren't living up to their claims. But it is a good way just to have some kind of a second eye out for the products that you're interested in. So,
well, this is a fantastic article about the UK CMA, or the Competition and Markets Authority. I'm sure that we have other kinds of organizations like that here in the United States. Hopefully those kind of regulators are starting to look at American companies as well as British companies and UK companies. And I'm sure European organizations are thinking about this too. No, this is a super important issue, and just have to be conscious and try to really know where you're getting your products from. Speaking of knowing how things get made, awkward transition there, but
no, I thought it was pretty smooth.
My headline is about another potentially impactful development in terms of making food, which is not just sustainable, but maybe even carbon negative. And it's interesting. I'm not really a big fan of engineered food, but I do think it's a great solution for a lot of things. But my headline reads, this company uses an ancient microbe to convert CO2 into food. And I mean, basically, CO2 is always getting converted into food because all life is carbon-based, if you think about it. So we're turning carbon into our bodies. Plants are turning carbon into their cellular fibers.
And then we eat the plants.
We eat the plants, which gets turned into the proteins. So this is a process which is just part of nature. But what this company, it's a Vienna-based company called Archeon Biotechnologies. What this company aims to do is be part of our substitute meats and plant-based dairy substitutes, get into that process. Those processes are already pretty chemically driven to create like the Beyond Burger or these alternatives to cow meat or cow milk, and use pea protein isolates as one of the main protein sources, which is much lower on the environmental impact in terms of water use, in terms of land use, than growing a cow. But in order to do that, there's a complex process to cleaning that protein to remove unwelcome flavors and then add additional ingredients to create the taste profile that you're looking for, world consumers looking for when they look for a more meat type of product. So this company, which is located in Vienna, has figured out a way to bypass that complicated purifying process with the help of an ancient microbe. So rather than using the sugar from those plants in order to create the proteins and the flavor profiles that we seek, they are using a fermentation process using a particular microbe called archaea, which is a microorganism endowed with the power to turn carbon dioxide, CO2, into the building blocks of a carbon-negative protein. And it takes CO2 and other molecules that are around, and through the fermentation process, this bacteria kind of eats that, processes it, and the output is a protein that includes all 20 of the essential amino acids, which makes up the protein that we currently need in our diets. This is why when you're a vegan and having no animal protein, you have to make sure you're balancing out the types of proteins that you're eating, because like beans and rice together have all 20 of those essential amino acids. But if you're only eating beans, you're missing out on some of those essential building blocks of protein that humans need. Whereas an animal-based protein has all 20 of those essential amino acids. So this is a way of giving a vegetarian food through this bacteria and using a feedstock of carbon dioxide and helping turn that right into the kinds of proteins that we need in our diets. The company is run by 3 scientists, Gregor Tegel, Simon Rittman, and Gunther Bachmann. And Rittman is the researcher who discovered that this one strain of archaea had this ability to create all 20 of the essential amino acids. So it's just sort of this interesting alternative protein product, and it can be combined in various ways to create different ingredients and flavors. And the company says that the novel process could add a lot more flavors to the current alt protein market.
This could be huge for those who don't want to sacrifice on the flavor.
It's totally in the research phase. They're about to launch a pilot in Europe to see if they can make it into a marketable product. But the cool thing is that it doesn't require any of the sugars in the fermentation process. It eliminates some of the environmental impacts of growing and harvesting crops. It's just taking the air and some water and these microbes and whatever other ingenious processes, and you get a protein that we can eat that actually gives us the nutrients we need. So definitely a bit of frankenfood, a little scary, but this is the kind of innovative solution that we are going to need in order to feed the billions of people who live on this earth and not continue to cut down rainforests and just graze animals all over the Amazon, which is a very short-term kind of solution. Yes, you get meat for the next 20 or 30 years, but then you've created a desert and you end up destroying the planet for future generations. Plus, this one is carbon negative. It actually takes carbon out of the stream to create this protein, then adding carbon. So that's why I am a fan of these kinds of innovations. What else? What other solutions are on the Optimist Daily Today, Ariel?
All right. Well, we have another headline that says, these tips may help you overcome social anxiety.
As we get back to going out to restaurants and things, right?
Yeah, exactly. You might not even know you have social anxiety, but you'll be out there in the world thinking like, oh my God, I don't know how to act. Another headline reads, famous missing ship has been found in the Antarctic. Interesting. Once a French coal mining zone, now a green tourism hub, and why we should bring nap time back with us to the workplace. Anything else?
Yes. Well, there's an extinct rock that may have made life on Earth possible that they have discovered. I don't know what this is. I haven't read that article. North Island brown kiwi is no longer a threatened species. That must be North Island as in North New Zealand Island.
I guess we'll have to read to find out.
Scientists develop a way to reverse aging in human eggs. A lot of aging stories lately. Australian humpback whales come back from endangered status. So another important species, which is actually starting to turn the corner in terms of population rebounding. And those are all great stories on the Optimist Daily. There's that, and there's thousands of other articles on all different kinds of subjects. So go check it out on the website, optimistdaily.com. And thank you so much for listening to the Optimist Daily Update. We promise to continue to share positive, solution-based stories with ideas on how you can participate in the changing world and ensure it is changed for the good. And we promise to keep covering current events with accuracy, legitimate sources, and offering you the information that we all need to chart new paths for all of us.
If you're not already, then please consider becoming an emissary on theoptimistdaily.com, and for just $5 a month, you can support reader-funded independent journalism. Other ways you can help support us is to rate our podcast. That helps other listeners and readers find our news outlet. And you could also check out our Instagram and share the stories that put a smile on your face with your followers, friends, and loved ones. Be part of the solution-changing consciousness and addressing our world's biggest challenges with a problem-solving mindset. Let's keep The Optimist Daily free to all who need it, supported by those who can.
Thanks, Ariel, and thanks, everybody, and we'll be back tomorrow.